Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar. We will get started this afternoon. So firstly, in the spirit of reconciliation, Windsor Group acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So thank you everyone for coming along this afternoon. So following on from our webinar last month where we talked all about cover letters, today we're going to help provide you some practical tips to help craft your resume. Throughout this session, feel free to type your questions in the chat box in Teams and we will get to those in the Q&A session. So it is my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker today, Adam Oakill. Adam is one of our executive consultants here at Windsor Group. Adam is an energetic and engaging sports lover. He has a specialty in education and training. Adam has worked across various roles in 3 different continents. So Adam has a really rounded understanding of the needs of employers and candidates alike. So who better than Adam to share with us today? So welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you for everyone for joining in. Thank you for that introduction. It was very lovely. I'll try and live up to that expectation. So guys, today we're talking about resumes. So firstly, a resume is the first point of contact between you and a potential employer. It is essential to create a resume that showcases your skills, your experience and your achievements in your career to date. In this presentation, we'll guide you through some helpful steps to write an effective resume. So what's the purpose of a resume? The purpose of a resume is to showcase a candidate's qualifications and achievements to potential employers. And your goal is to try and secure the interview or even better, a job offer off that resume. It serves as a marketing tool to demonstrate how you as an applicant can add value to a company or an organisation. So tip 1. Make sure you add in the key details, of course, your name, phone number, your email, and your location. Could be your current address, that's a personal preference, and your LinkedIn handle, if you have one, at the top of your resume. So it's really clear for the reader that they can see who they're dealing with and the contact details are on that front page, nice and clear. So tip 2, start with a clear and concise summary. So you'll often see, you would have seen a lot of different resume templates, but they do have a brief summary section underneath your contact details at the top. So begin with that brief summary. This will talk about your career highlights and possibly optional. You can put in an objective of where you want to go if you're at the start of your career or even throughout your career. That's a bit of an optional. So the example, this one could be an award-winning CEO with 20 years experience leading high growth companies in the technology sector. So for that, it is just more about something nice and clear about you, where you are, where you want to go, and some of that achievements in your career. Keep that short, guys. Don't overdo your career summary at the start. So tip 3, we're going to focus on the achievements, not just duties. So as you list your current role or the last role that you had, you will highlight the specific achievements and successes in each role, such as maybe growing revenue or leading successful mergers or acquisitions. So that would be quite at an executive level, but a couple of examples we've got here. You could put in employee of the month, or if you were promoted to team leader, but just don't grab the position description and put the duties straight under the job. Try and tailor it for what achievements and successes you've had in that role to make it nice and clear. Don't overdo your bullet points under that role. Try and keep it fairly concise, down to 4 or 5. We're not there just to list the duties. We know what the roles, duties and position descriptions look like as recruiters and organisations who read it for the clients that we recruit for. They know what the duties are of the roles that you're in, but they want to know a little bit about the successes or achievements you've had. Tip 4, using bullet points and white space. So use the bullet points to list those achievements we just discussed, and use the white space. Just create a little bit of spacing. Layout is really important to make your resume look clean and organised. If it's if it's text upon text, it's very easy for the reader who may be going through 40, 50, even 100 resumes for one position. It makes it a lot easier for the reader, and it's all about trying to make it easier for the reader. So really do think about your layout and how easy it is to read. A good tip on that one, just a quick one, you could get someone to read it and make sure that they find it easy to read after you've done that. So now we're going to talk about your including the relevant education and certificates. So list your educational background, the certifications and any relevant training courses that you think are relevant to the role. You don't need to list every accomplishment or course that you've done. For example, if you've done a diploma, but then you went on to get your bachelor degree, well, you would only need to list the bachelor degree because it's higher. So we've got a couple of examples there. We've got February 2018, March 2021. This person did the bachelor's degree in business administration from QUT. So it clearly shows the dates when you did it, which is really important. And it's really important if you haven't finished, you must make sure that you put due to complete 2023 or 2024. That's a really important tip, guys, because recruiters will do background checks, and anything that you've put down on that resume, they will be verifying with the relevant educational institutions. So if you are in the course, do make sure you put down when the completion date is due. Okay, now this is talking about the types of language that we want to use in the resume, using action verbs for those bullet points that we've talked about. So start each bullet point with an action verb to show what you've accomplished. So the first example is a very good one. Implemented new growth strategy resulting in 50% increase in market share instead of just responsible for growth strategy and implementation. Again, that's just not listing the duties in your position description. It's actually using that word that you did achieve that as you went. Any numbers or data that you can put in that to show the increases, as long as it's nice and accurate, definitely put it in. It does catch readers' eyes. Another example there, developed and maintained a comprehensive inventory tracking system, reducing stock discrepancies by 20% and improving order accuracy. So at any role that you're in, there's always ways that you can show the achievements that you've done by using those action verbs. It's a great way to let the reader know that you were part of it and these are things that you have achieved. Okay, tip 7, guys, and this is a really, really important one. Proofread and edit. So it sounds very simple. Check for spelling and grammatical errors and make sure the formatting is consistent throughout the document. Have a trusted colleague or a family member or an executive coach, if you have one, review your resume to catch any mistakes that you might have missed. You'll be amazed at all different levels of applicants where just simple errors, as recruiters, as readers of resumes every day, we understand that these things can happen, but I must say there are some clients that are very, very particular about the grammar in the resumes that we submit forward to them, especially if you're in a position where, most roles have got to have comms, but if you are putting out some writing that's part of that role, they're going to narrow down very quickly if there is errors, which could go against you. So proofread, guys. So a resume, again, the purpose is to showcase your skills and qualifications, demonstrate your value. You're trying to secure an interview. You want to stand out from other applicants, and you are providing a snapshot of your professional profile, relevant to the role, guys, relevant to the role that you're applying for. So what to avoid? As I've said and stressed, typos and errors. Very simple, but a very important step. Try not to make it too long. Do not overuse buzzwords. Don't use negative language. Be positive about what you've done, not what you haven't done. And don't put in irrelevant information that really is not suited to the role that you're going for. It's really good if you can do some research on the organisation before you're going in there. And that way, sometimes too, you can get an understanding of the language that they use across their website, which would help with the language that you can use. Making it too long can be a common thing. So I always kind of think 3 to 4 pages would be completely enough for a resume, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, maybe in the question and answer section. So, refining your resume, guys, just to recap, keep it concise. Organize your sections and your layout, as we talked about. Make it easy for the reader. Utilize action verbs. Tailor for each job. Highlight those achievements. Showcase your skills. Optimize the key words. Proofread and try and use a professional format. There's a lot of templates out there. There's no best template to use. So just one that you're comfortable with. If you want some color, we'll use colors that you like. But really just sort of do the layout as easy as you can, and always think that there's a human at the other end reading these. So you want to make it as clear and concise about who you are, bringing all those things to the table as we discussed. So here you go, guys. Here's my actual resume. This is my front page. So again, I'm a pretty simple bloke. I like to keep things fairly simple. So you'll see right at the top, just on the left, you've got my name, my mobile, and my email. I've got my photo there, which is completely optional. Everybody's different, whether you want to put your photo on. Certain roles, companies want to know if it's a front-facing sort of role with the customers or presentations. But I can assure you that as a recruiter, and everybody does these days, as soon as the resume comes across without a photo, they're going to try and jump into LinkedIn, or they're going to jump into Facebook to try and get an idea of you. Now, of course, it doesn't matter. That is completely optional. And if you're comfortable, it doesn't go against you one way or the other. It's just my personal preference. I have my personal details there. Again, this is up to you on how you are. I'm obviously someone who shares everything pretty quickly, but that's the person and nature of me. It's completely up to you on what you wish to share. I think the location of where you live is important. You don't need to go down to the address, but that's going to be one of the first questions that the recruiter is going to think in relevance to where the location is for the role. I've got my areas of expertise in there, being recruitment and strategic HR and training and safety management. So again, if you've built some experience and you have some expertise in certain areas, just put it down there on maybe a column like I've done there to make it very easy for that person to see the fields that you're in and the experience that you have. I've got my education just listed there. Only the 2 there, so I've put them in to keep it concise. You don't want that one over the top. More courses and things relevant could be further into your resume, but I guess just a quick snapshot of your main qualifications if you want to put that in. And I've also got languages, just working in a few different continents I've used to put that down there to help with the recruiters to know what I can and can't do in different countries. So if you look at my layout, you'll see the profile. I've kept that fairly short. I speak in the third person, guys, when I do my resume. Again, that's a personal preference there, but I really think it's better to have in your resume, because it's a marketing tool, that it's not going to have I have done this, I have done that, which could be somewhat of a turnoff. Your cover letter can be more personalized with using the word I, but it's just my personal preference. I believe in the third person, putting it in there, but it is completely up to you which you feel more comfortable about. But it is a marketing tool about you, and it's a good little tip that your name is constantly being remembered by the recruiter. So straight under my profile, I've got my professional experience and the current role I'm in. You'll see Windsor Group as executive consultant since September 2021 to current. So that should just be the line of your title. I know sometimes titles can get very long, so try and keep it relevant to the actual job you're applying for, but just state your title and make sure the date's there of when you began. I do think putting the month in is important, not the exact date or day when you started, but it just shows that continuity of your career to date. And then under it, there's a short little sentence explaining who the company is, guys. So a lot of the time, you may assume that the reader knows what your company is about, And yes, they'll go and jump online and quickly look up the company to understand. But again, it's trying to make it as easy as possible. So just a 1 sentence or 2 sentence about what that company is that you work for or have worked for is really a good tip and really helpful to the recruiters or the readers of your resume. And then, as I said, 3, 4 or 5 bullets on the job, and trying to use it in the way that we discussed in the earlier tips with the achievements that you've done. So you see, before this job, my other job, I've got the dates when I started and finished, and I've got that explanation about the company again. Just again, trying to make it easy for the reader that they know who you are off that front page. So that is genuinely the one that I use, guys. Like I said, it is a personal preference on how you want to do it, but hopefully there's some nice guides there. So let's go. We've got some questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, please go to the chat room, send them through, and Amy will grab them and read them out, and we'll work through them. So now's your chance. Please put a few through. Okay.
Thanks, Adam. We do have some questions already, so I will get straight into those for you. For those of us that may have been in the workforce for a little while, a long time perhaps, how far back on the resume should we actually go with the detail?
Good question, Amy. Yeah, I think if you've had a long experience, like work history relevant to the length of your experience. So if you've had a long career to date, I think 20 years max is enough, and you can always just list the roles in a quick 1 line before that, prior to that date. You wouldn't want to go into explaining each of those roles with 4 or 5 bullet points, otherwise your resume is going to turn into 8 pages. So yeah, really 20 years is probably enough, but also just keeping it relevant. If you're fairly new into your working career, then you can list everything that goes back to your high school, I guess. But yeah, I think it's really important not to go too far back, and keep it succinct to make it as easy as possible for the reader. And list the jobs if they are some other jobs that are really relevant for the job that you've had maybe prior to that 20-year mark. Yes, you can include them and just say some relevant jobs before. Just give the dates that show how suitable you are to the one that you're applying for.
Thank you, Adam. A bit of a theme coming through around explaining absences out of the workforce. So what do we put in? So if I've been out of the workforce for 3 years, what should I actually put on my resume? Because obviously the recruiter or the employer is going to notice a gap in date. So what should we be putting there?
Absolutely. And we have seen that question come a lot from a few joining in today. So yeah, I honestly, first and foremost, just start with the truth. I think it's always best to do that. You don't want to put any false expectations or leave any questions that they would narrow down on, and you're not comfortable or in a position to be able to answer those. So get them in your resume. If you had to have a gap, it could be you might be a homemaker for a while, you might have been traveling or even caring for someone, or maybe an illness that you've experienced. So just write them down, and it doesn't need to be long, but it just gives that reader the dates as to why. I think it's much better to do that than to not have anything, because that will put more questions in the recruiter's mind instead of having the answers there. And you should be comfortable with the breaks if you've had some breaks, because there's obviously a reason for it. So yeah, certainly tell the truth about it. And I think that's the best way to go, Amy.
Thanks, Adam. In terms of terminology around resume versus CV or curriculum vitae, what term should we be using? And when we're titling our document to upload or submit, what should we be calling it?
Well, I personally, it doesn't matter too much to me as a recruiter, whether it's resume or CV, there'll be different language used. I call mine a resume, but I'm also reading the ad. If they are saying, please upload your CV, then you could save the title as CV just to stay consistent if that reader or recruiter of that resume might have a preference one way or the other. So I certainly think it's it's not a defining which way is better, but certainly that might be a way just to guide you on how to do it. But whatever you sort of feel comfortable with, I think they're both okay.
Thanks, Adam. And I guess continuing on a little bit in that theme, you just talked about uploading the CV or resume. We know our ads say this, that we prefer the resume in Word version. So just questioning, is that what recruiters are preferring, that it's not sent through a PDF when they're submitting, that it's actually a Word version document?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very easy for the reader then to work with it. And sometimes if we're recruiting on behalf of a client, the resume would be submitted through to them with your personal details removed. And it's a lot easier to arrange that formatting to get it through. So definitely, again, it comes back to making it easier. I know people want to protect the PDF as well, but you'll be assured by agencies there's all privacy laws that we cannot touch or affect it. We can simply submit that through. So again, it's making it easier for the recruiters to work with that document in terms of the formatting to get it through to clients. So again, read the application. A good ad will indicate on how they would want the document sent to themselves. So if it's not noted, I think Word is probably the best way to go.
Thanks, Adam. In terms of when we were talking just before around, listing out those key achievements under the job. So, I implemented a growth strategy, etc. Is it better to have it under each role, or could you list sort of your selected achievements at the end of your document? What do you think is a better way to do that?
Again, when you look at the first page and we talk about your quick summary, some of those really great achievements that you might want to include them in that first sort of paragraph there as well. There's also another section if you wanted to put into your resume, you could have just key achievements and list. I wouldn't go more than maybe 6 or 7. I think it's good to keep it obviously relevant to the role that you're going for, and not just listing everything that you're proud of, but put those ones that you're most proud. But certainly that can be a section in your resume on page 2 or 3 of your resume.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam. Maybe a curly question slightly here. What do you think is one standout thing that you can do in your resume that makes someone want to read it?
Again, I think it comes back to that first page, guys. Really think about your layout and the readability of that first page. So I think if you get that right, you make sure that, as we've advised, that get your name and your contact details nice and clear, with your quals on that front page, as that could be a determinant requirement for the role. But keeping that layout, keeping it not looking like a PD. I've heard that often in many different recruitment places where it's like, oh, another PD's been sent through. So just be really mindful of the layout. And for me as well, and personally, that I attach my photo there, but just when it is a human that's reading, if there's a photo there, they will feel more connected, I think, to continue reading through. So again, that's personal and up to you, but I do find it can be very advantageous. But I think it comes down to that clear layout on page 1 so that we, as a recruiter, get a great snapshot of who you are and what you're about. And that just makes it easier, and that will entice to continue to read further through the resume.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. I think that's all the questions that have come through, and we're pretty much on the money on time today, which is really good. So I guess to that end, thanks for joining us today, everyone. What we will do from this webinar is we will send you, this was recorded, so we will send you the recording so you can have a listen back on that, and we'll include the link to the cover letter one that we did do originally. If you did miss that, it kind of would help, I guess, moving forward. And our next one, I think, is scheduled for the 9th of June, and that's all about the job application search process. So now that you've done your cover letter, you've crafted your resume, where do you begin with the job search and how do you approach that? So that will be our next one. So thank you all very much for coming along, and thank you, Adam, for sharing your tips with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope there's some helpful hints in there for you. And I wish you the best of luck with whatever your next career move is. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Bye, everyone.